Hi, I'm Linda Eadie, and I'm the author of Jenniferology, which is a young adult novel about a 15-year-old girl named Jennifer, of course, who's been a handful lately, rebellious, and her mother's had enough, and she has decided to drop her off with her grandmother, who she hasn't seen, Jennifer hasn't seen in about 3 years. That's because her grandmother has moved to Florida and lives in a retirement community. And so Jennifer is now living with her grandmother. The first chapter that I'm going to read to you is about the car ride there to her grandmother's in Florida. Chapter 1. I found myself directing my eyes back out the same window that bore my fingers, nose, and forehead prints for the third day of our butt-numbing car ride. The terrain had changed from yesterday's red Georgia clay and pines to palm trees and white sand infested with fleas. "Did I tell you, Heather, I signed us up for the jet ski excursion," said Phil, my mother's newest and most certainly not improved boyfriend. Phil had come along on this road trip for a couple of reasons. One, because he provided the wheels in his, as he prefers to call it, vintage 1983 Mercedes-Benz. And two, because he's taking my mother on an all-expense-paid company vacation, a Royal Caribbean cruise to the Bahamas. This was not the reason why I was in the car, though. I was a pain, a royal one, according to my mother. I was a nagging reminder that she was once married to my father and brought forth from his lusty loins, me, Jennifer Bryce Hamilton. "Oh, Phil, that sounds like such fun," squealed my mom from the front seat in front of me. "I've never driven one before." "I'm driving," said Phil, tossing his still-lit cigarette butt out his window. "You're piggybacking." Phil's such a tight ass. Last night at dinner, he shared his meatloaf special with my mother, and she ordered out the kiddie menu for me as if I was 5. Thank God soft drink refills were free. Otherwise, I might have become dehydrated on the salty chicken nuggets. I had sat there like a good girl in my assigned back seat for far too many hours. It was time to rattle my mother's lusty rendezvous. "I can't freaking believe it," I exclaimed. "Do you blame me?" "I know my mother does." "Don't start with me, Jennifer," warned my favorite perennial target. She refused to turn around. "Why not?" "Because I'm intruding on your life." "What about mine, Mom?" The back of my mother's head answered with 2 hard shakes. I kicked her seat. She moved. Phil lit another cigarette. Her face appeared. "Stop it. We've already been over this, and I refuse to do this with you right now." Her blue eyes, lined in black, squinted. Her left waxed eyebrow arched higher than the right, and her permanent lined lips twisted. "Do you hear me, Jennifer?" Good, a reaction. "Why not?" "I want to discuss it. Again, right now. She lives in a damn trailer park, for God's sake." "Watch your language, young lady." She turned back around. Phil stayed safely on the mute button and sucked in more tar and nicotine. I bobbled my head and mimicked her in my best animated voice. "Watch your language, young lady." "This smarty pants attitude of yours, Jennifer, is just part of the reason why you're coming to live with your grandmother till Christmas." My mother was talking to her reflection as she applied another coat of candy apple color to her lips. "Your mean pranks for kicks, young lady, almost landed you right into the hands of the Juvenile Justice Department. You should thank Mama Rudine when you see her. She's gone to a lot of trouble to make all the arrangements for you to stay with her." "For me? Oh, yeah, right, Mom. This is all for me. So I'm supposed to thank my grandmother for her teen at-risk intervention sacrifice? I don't think so." My mother's muzzle reappeared. "You know I busted my butt for you, Jennifer. You have been such a handful since the divorce. Just look at yourself. You look ridiculous. And your hair, for God's sake, blue!" exclaimed my mother with lipstick smudged across her front teeth. That, young lady, was the final straw. "Believe it," I snapped at her. I stared back out the window. My reflection answered my mother's request and returned my gaze. It expressed my disdain, guilt, and loneliness. I tried to prevent my tears from draining. My life was level, disconnected, empty. Divorce sucks. Not only do your parents become separated, but so do you. We sat without speaking, only thinking, minds over pleasantries. There is no such thing as true silence, at least not in our heads. Mine spent the time decoding my other life, when I lived with my parents in a McMansion/trophy home. That is up until my father got fired from his CEO position in the almighty corporate world and screwed his secretary and Mom and me in a different sort of way. That was 2 years ago. He's paternal history. Forgotten. I rarely see him, nor do I care to. Phil broke my nauseous thoughts. "Heather, I was going to save this surprise for later, but I think I'll go ahead and tell you." "Tell me what, honey?" asked my mother in her on the road to intimacy voice. "I know how much you enjoy massages to, relieve stress." "Oh, yes, I could sure use one right now." "Well, you won't have to wait for long, Cupcake, because as soon as we board, I've ordered us a couples massage in the privacy of our stateroom. We'll be sipping on frozen pina coladas before you know it." "Oh, Phil, that all sounds so fabulous." I'm going to freaking spew. I interrupted their foreplay by shouting, "I won't be here when you come back for me." The control freak's head whipped around. "Well, young lady, if you do take off, you'll be sorry. You won't ever find me." Of course, I wasn't really going to run away. I'm not that stupid, but I had to say it. It was expected. Besides, I haven't taken a decent picture in years. Seriously, who would want their freshman mugshot on the side of a milk carton?